Brother Pháp Huu, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure to have you here. So I'm curious about the history and purpose of the lazy day. What's going on with that?
It started in 1984. So Plum Village was created and established in 1982. And Plum Village is a practice center where we focus on meditation and offer all these retreats. And we have a lot of young people that comes through Plum Village to practice with, in that time, Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh, who we call Thai. And one day, one of the youth came up to our teacher, Thai, and he said, Thai, it's so wonderful to have the structure of a day where the Zen master and the community creates a practice schedule, but 7 days a week, it's quite intense. So how about giving us a day to just do nothing and a day to just also see, can we still maintain everything that we've learned and we've cultivated in the retreat in a day when suddenly there's no structure? Is it possible for us to still maintain our quality of peace, our quality of stillness, or does our mind take over and our habits take over? So in a way, it's giving back to every individual the agency of how to be when there is a day that is offered to you, that you can pick whatever you like to do, but at the same time, be very intentional with the 24 hours that you're going to be offered. So this was the origin in 1984. And it's quite drastic because in any Zen monastery or any traditional temple, there's no concept of a break for prayer, for peace or meditation. And I was speaking to this young friend who asked our teacher, which he's not young anymore, he's in his 60s now. I talked to him this morning to double check about the origin, and he said what he admired in asking this to the Zen master, to Thai, was how open Thai was. And he said, when I look back, like we were quite like just upfront about it, and not knowing how Thai would respond to this request, but it just offers the openness of a teacher as well as his listening to his community to see that, oh, maybe it is tiring for everyone to practice so intensively for 7 days in a week and to offer a day of just rest. And in our modern time, I would say that lazy day is such a drastic view. Is like, how do you be for one whole day and do nothing? It's almost like against the stream of our society. So in our Zen approach, we are learning to be more present, right? To be more alive. But how can we be if we don't give us an opportunity to also stop, rest, and heal? So sometimes it's so important to disconnect ourselves from the automatic pilot that we have inside of us, from the day-to-day routine, and just double check, like, what can I do for myself today that can offer me back the feeling of being? And I think in our modern time, and I reflect this on myself, sometimes it's so important just to look at a day. For us in Plum Village, it's every Monday. So in society, Monday is like you're back to work. In Plum Village, we take a different approach. Monday is going to be our lazy day. And it is to teach us to not schedule anything and just let the day manifest as how it should be. And how do we navigate ourselves in the present moment? So it's another way of living deeper into the present moment.
Most of us have never been to a Zen monastery, so I could imagine some people listening to this thinking, well, isn't every day at a Zen monastery a lazy day? What is the schedule that you suspend for one day?
Okay. So we would normally wake up at 5 a.m. At 6 a.m., we would have meditation going on for 45 minutes to an hour, and then followed by breakfast, and the whole morning is in complete silence. And then from 9:30 to 11 o'clock, we, in the monasteries, if it's the monks and the nuns, we would have our classes, our workshops. In big retreats, we'll be offering teachings to all of the retreatants that are coming to participate in the week with us. And then followed by a collective walking meditation, and then a lunch all together, a mindful meal together. And then in the afternoon, we would have physical work or chores, duties. A lot of us who are residents of the community, we have tasks that we help support in the monasteries to help the organization run. So Plum Village is an international meditation retreat center. So there's a lot of organization that needs to happen. So there's a lot of backstage. So a lot of us also work in the office. We do administration work and even have to work with our lawyers, have to work with contractors that come to help renovate, help build. And then that goes on into, like, let's say 5 p.m. And then we try to schedule exercise for 1 hour in our daily routine, because there's a lot of stillness, like in the classes, in the meditation. So our life, we try to balance the physical and the mind energy. So we have physical work as well as physical exercise, and then dinner. And then we end our day with silence of meditation and chanting. So from 8 to 9 or 9:30, depending on the day, depending on which sutra we are reading. Sometimes it's very long, so it can go on for longer. And we would end the day around 9:30, enter into noble silence into the next morning. And so this is like the basics framework of a schedule, but it depends on our seasons. So let's say in the summer, we have our 1 month summer opening where we would receive thousands of people per week for a 7-day retreat from July all the way into August. And then we have retreats for young people. We call them Wake Up, the Wake Up Initiative, from 18 years old to 35. And we would host around 800 people for these particular retreats. So you can imagine in those settings, our Sangha, or Sangha means our community, the monks and the nuns, we become the hosts. So we're also, we're cooks, we're leading the teachings, we're picking guests up at the station, we're welcoming guests, we're doing the rooms, and we have a lot of volunteers. So there's a lot of organization. So in the midst of all of this, to maintain our balance, these lazy days, these Mondays become such holy days for us. They are like the untouchable days in the monastery. And I remember one time, sometimes it just looks like there's so much we want to do, but 24 hours is not enough, and 7 days is not enough. And there was a guest monastic that came to visit us, and he was in one of our meetings trying to squeeze in an activity. And he wasn't aware that how special Monday was. And he said, I look at the schedule and I see Monday has nothing. Why don't you put those schedules that you want to do in the Monday? And the whole community said, absolutely not. That is the holy day. That's the day that nobody is allowed to shift and change. So in a way, in Plum Village, we have created a culture and a respect for the lazy day, where we learn to allow ourselves this space of rest. And it's not easy. It's very challenging. And it's because all of us monastics, there is probably a concept that, we just meditate all day and we are very quiet and so on. But in Plum Village, our foundation is engaged Buddhism, and our teacher started this from the concept of it from the wartime, because Buddhism has to be applicable to everyday life. So for myself, why I was inspired in Plum Village was because how engaged the monastic was with the people that come, as well as going on tours to offer the teachings around the world, and receiving different walks of life in Plum Village, and having time to be with and to serve together. So the habit of doing and the habit of working, or we call it service from the heart, can also, if not mindfully and skillfully approach, it will become a job, it will become labor, and it becomes also an automatic things that we just do every day. So having a day to just reset and check in again to see what is our intention for the week.
So what does that look? What does doing nothing look like in practicality? Are you do not get out of bed? What form does it take?
Yeah. Oh, okay. So I think the first thing for a lot of us is we get to sleep in. So we would try to sleep in a little more instead of waking up at 5, waking up at 6 or 7. It's not about doing totally nothing, but it's doing something that is unplanned for. And for myself, I would just want to give myself a lot of space and time to connect more with my community. So I am the abbot of Plum Village in France, and that means a lot of organization. And I realized that throughout the months and years, having heart to heart connection, just having a cup of tea with no business has become more rare. So for myself on Mondays, especially in the mornings, I would make the room available, and whoever wants to come in and have a cup of tea, just enjoy a cup of tea and enjoy a conversation, and giving space and time, and not to feel like I'm rushing you. So the doing nothing for me would be, how can my presence offer to myself as well as to my community? I'm present. Would you like to connect? And also have boundaries within the week if it was so intense for myself, if I had so many meetings in the week, if that day I would allow myself to connect more to nature, for example. So just to give myself permission to just rest. It's just like when instead of finding myself lost in, let's say, music or reading something that can distract me away, just giving myself permission to just be present and go for a walk with not really a clear destination. And that in a way is doing nothing. So it's just allowing yourself to be present for yourself and for whatever that is there.
Does that mean so you're not reading, you're not watching TV, you're not listening to music?
No, there can be some days I would listen to a podcast. I would listen to a Dharma talk, or I would listen to some music. Yes. So it's just intentionally seeing what I can do in that day that would break my rhythm. So in a normal rhythm of a day, I have things scheduled. There's an agenda. So on a lazy day, allow yourself to just see that day without an agenda. And can you just discover yourself and have the curiosity and listen to yourself? What is it that you would like to do? But the doing here is not to achieve something, but the doing here is allowing yourself to be more present for yourself. And sometimes that doing is allowing yourself to just practice total relaxation for 2 hours straight, just to have body scan, whether it is in a sitting posture, in meditation, or just laying down. And for some of the monastics, they would do a big hike on that day to just to allow themselves to sometimes be out of the monastery. It's a good refresh. So it allows us to touch within us the artist inside of us. How can I still offer joy to myself? Yeah.
The reason why I was probing the sort of no movies, no phone or something, I'm curious, like what are the lines? Because I think part of the purpose of the lazy day is to get you to, I think your terminology is face yourself, that you're not allowing yourself many of the forms of self-medication that are available to us on most days in the form of scheduling or distraction, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. you are right, Dan. I think in our modern times, with so much technology, with so much devices, I think we have such a habit of like, waking up and just like our hands just automatically looking for our cell phones. And I'm sharing this because as you can see that I've also have that habit now of knowing, okay, what time is it? What is my next schedule? What is the next thing I have to be present for? And so in our way of looking how to enjoy life, there is a lot of service like Netflix, like Spotify, a lot of music, a lot of entertainment that we can allow ourselves and indulge ourselves in these entertainment. But at the same time, for us, like to be alive is such a gift, and to know that you have also the capacity to be with yourself and not having to rely yourself with technology or these other forms that can um, can occupy our headspace, um, and carry us away. But here, the lazy day is offering us, now this space is really for you. If you have a day to do nothing, can you really do it? Can you really just allow yourself to be? And I'm sure many of us will, the first reaction will be, oh, that would be amazing. But then our habit energies and um, our tendency is to occupy that space, because we see that if we don't do anything, then it's a waste of time. So here is like an antidote. It's like, but what is time for? And for us, time is for being. And in the being, there's many layers, and it can be the being of to offer, to be present, to do. But here we want to talk about how can we be, so that we can really establish our full presence and having our clear intention of what we would like to offer for ourselves as well as for the world. And I look at animals, like when animals get hurt, instead of finding things to do, they have the art of doing nothing. They know how to rest. And a part of our ancestors, our lineage of humanity, we've also had that wisdom of knowing how to rest, to heal. But we've also forgotten this. So the lazy day is also an antidote where, why don't you not try to run after healing, but why don't you just be to heal?
How do you enforce this? What if you found out that your monks were going to the movies or doing things to distract themselves?
I'm trying to remember to see if I had to like yell at anybody. um, so every monk and nun have mentors, and whenever we go out of the monastery, we do ask permission, and we always ask, what's your intention in going out? If your intention is to run away from the monastery because you're feeling bored and trapped, then we would say, are you sure you want to go out, or can you challenge yourself to feel to feel what needs to be felt? And in that moment is the feeling of feeling uncomfortable. So I think because part of our career is to continue to develop our self-acceptance and our sense of wholeness, and that is accepting everything that is present, the beauty and the unbeauty. So the enforcement, it's actually not so difficult, because there is a collective energy that has been created. So on the Monday, it does feel there's a lot more space. There's a lot more openness for people to just find their nooks and space of rest and being.
Hmm.
And from time to time, I do want to say, in the monastery, we do organize like movie nights together, or in Europe, because it's such the collective culture of soccer, or over there football, is a very huge celebration. So we would watch the finals together, like of the World Cup or the Euro Cup. So we do celebrate these moments together also.
And to be clear, you have to ask permission to leave. But if anybody wants to, nobody's physically restrained from leaving Plum Village.
No, no, absolutely not. Yeah.
I think it's worth, you've touched on this a little bit, but I think it's worth probably saying a little bit more. Why is it so hard for us to do nothing?
Hmm. We've been trained since going to school. To be successful is to be worthy, to do something, is to be seen as someone who has contributed to society. And that's not wrong, to be able to offer a heart of service to humanity. But culturally, there's also this concept that time is money, and do not waste your time. Don't just sit there and do nothing, do something. And so all of these trainings and metaphors and ways of looking at life has been installed in us. And suddenly the moment when we're offered space and time to just be, the monkey mind or the that habitual energy of feeling unworthy comes up really strongly. And here, in the emptiness of space and time, a lot of things can manifest. And that's why sometimes meditation, it's challenging, because you get to see your habit energy. And seeing your habit energy, you have to face yourself, and you have to accept these particular qualities that are, some of it has been transmitted to you from your parents, from your ancestors, and some of it has been transmitted just by society, the stream of society. So doing nothing becomes the opposite of mainstream society. And therefore, that's why it's so difficult to just sit there and realize that I can offer myself a moment of just being, of just emptiness, of just stillness, and just sit there and follow your breath, feel the emotions that are coming up, being connected to the body to see, why is there pain? Why is there stress? And so suddenly that's why meditation seems so difficult, because it's the opposite of everyday action, which is just mind. It is so much different energies that are pulling us towards the future, and being is to establish ourselves into the very here and now. So I think it's a matter of education, culture, as well as well as of transmission. And I think this is why in Plum Village, when people come to a retreat and they are given this space to do nothing, for some, it's their first time in their lifetime having this 24 hours of just being. And for some, they don't know what to do. You know, they will look for where the noise is in order to get into conversations and to cover up this silence. Lazy Day becomes a mirror for each of us. It's like, what is it that we're afraid of? And what is it that we are being pulled towards? For me, all of these questions is always a reflection. Like why is it that I can't allow myself to be still today? And I'm still practicing this after 22 years of practice. And for myself, there was recognizing myself, the seed of loneliness is very strong in myself. And I'm from a family that were refugees, and my parents worked two jobs when I was growing up. So during the daytime, I would not see them. And only in the evenings, when my parents would come home, we would have a very brief moment of togetherness. And so this feeling of emptiness was very present in me. And when I entered into the community, into Plum Village, where there is a residential community of monks, at that time there was 30 something monastics. I felt, finally, I sensed a feeling of wholeness, of family. And of course, throughout my years, there are moments when I wanted to be alone, but I didn't know how to be alone. And a part of it was I was recognizing, because I haven't come to also acceptance at looking and embracing the loneliness inside of me. And was always attracted towards the noise because the child that was feeling the void of love was so present and was running after those noise, those interaction. And so there was a time for myself when I realized in the lazy day, instead of going to the rooms where there was a lot of people, I would intentionally invite myself to just be by myself. And that was very new for me. That was a very new practice, just to be and to feel the sensation of fear of not having anyone around me. And that was only when I allow myself to do that, when I able to see the inner child that needed this Phap Huu to be present for it and to gently, tenderly embrace the past in the present moment.
How would you recommend for those of us who are not monks or nuns, how would you recommend that we integrate the wisdom of lazy day into our lives? Should we be taking lazy days? Should we be taking lazy hours? What's your view?
I would start off with lazy 30-minute to slowly ease in because, like I shared, it may be quite challenging to give yourself a whole day first, but to allow yourself within the day 30-minute where you can just be present for yourself and not being distracted by the noise. And this noise is the within noise, the radio station that we have within. And if that radio station is telling us to turn on the music or to turn on a podcast or to turn on Netflix, can we resist a little bit? Can we train ourselves to just, no, you know what? I'm just going to have a cup of juice and I'm going to allow myself to just be with this cup of juice and not have all this noise distracting myself from enjoying this cup of juice, or just giving yourself a moment of while you're going for a walk. And I know a lot of us have built in the culture of listening to music or listening to podcasts and so on. And can we give ourselves 30-minute where we allow our senses to be in touch with the present moment, whether that is the sounds of the birds or even the street cars, even the ambulance sound, like what is brought up when you hear the sirens of of a police car, and just to feel what needs to be felt, so you are present for your own emotions and feeling. And as we progress with this practice, we do have uh, built in our culture or society the weekends, Saturday and Sunday, and I'm sure that day becomes those 2 days become actually the most busiest day because suddenly we can schedule what we really want to do outside of the Monday to Friday schedule. And then how can we look at our weekend to have moments that give us rest and presence? And for those of us who live in families and have relationships, where within those days can we really be together and not distracted by um, the news or distracted by a project, where we can just really connect with one another? So this is an invitation, and for myself, it's also finding the things that I like to do that allows me to also feel very present and alive. And for me, it's I love every 2 weeks I would schedule the first 2 hours of the Monday to just clean my room, for example, to really have a moment to rearrange my desk, to rearrange my the space where I live. The space where I live is a representation of myself. So within that, there's an intention of doing, but that doing is being very present with the action of sweeping, of mopping, of cleaning the windows. So it's not just doing totally nothing, but it's doing so that we can be fully present. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it does. I can imagine somebody listening to this podcast in their car on the way to an appointment in the middle of a busy day thinking, dude, I've got 6 kids and 3 jobs and, a bunch of financial concerns or whatever, and I don't have time for a lazy 30 minutes.
Yeah, so that's interesting. I don't have time, but I have time to do all these other things. We always think we don't have time, but we will find ourselves having time to watching something on television or finding ourselves being doom scrolling and so on. So how about the moments when we're sitting on the bus or we're driving a car when we have to stop at the red light? That's a mandatory stop, right? That's a mandatory that everybody has to pause. Can we see that moment of stopping in front of that red light, a moment of laziness? Can we just like sit there and just feel our breath, feel our body? Are we stressed? Are we tense? Can we relax ourselves? Can we just allow ourselves to be present even for the stoplight? Can that stoplight be a reminder for us to take a pause? So I would challenge for all of us, and I would invite, not a challenge, I want to invite all of us to look at the meaning of time. And our teacher, Zen Master Thich Nhat Hanh, one of his quote, and is still a teaching for all of us in Plum Village, is time is not just to do, but time is to be. And sometimes the foundation of all of our actions has to also be from the foundation of non-action, meaning we have to also allow ourselves to know how to stop and to reflect, to have understanding so that we can continue to move forward with doing, but having the right intentions of our actions. And we can be taking care of our 3 children, but how are we doing it? How are we being with our 3 children? So it's a shifting mind of the way of being, the way of doing.
The 10% Happier podcast is available ad-free over on our companion meditation app, which is also called 10% Happier. And you will get the episodes a week before everybody else does. Download the 10% Happier app right now to get started for free. So if I'm hearing you correctly on a very practical tip here, that even for the person who feels time-starved, overwhelmed, certainly not enough time to do a lazy day, maybe even not enough time to do a lazy 30 minutes. What you're saying is you can actually understand this advice very broadly. So maybe a 30-minute car ride becomes turn off all the distractions and just be awake as much as you can. And then every time you get distracted, you start again. So this quote unquote laziness can be integrated into any part of the day that you're doing anyway, but normally would be numbing out with something else.
Exactly. And I do a lot of facilitation of meetings, and I always come on time. And a lot of times, people come late for our meetings, and we don't start until everybody's there. So the time that I'm waiting for everybody to arrive at the meeting room, instead of being angry and annoyed, which those emotions do come, I allow myself to just sit and just to rest during that moment instead of like being angry. I was like, well, you know what? It's okay. Them being late is giving me a few moments of just sitting here and doing nothing. So it's the concept of a lazy day, but being introduced into busy moments in our daily life. Yeah.
I want to ask, and this may seem like a distinction without a difference, but when you're talking about starting with a lazy 30 minutes and you use the example of taking a walk and instead of listening to a podcast or music, just opening up in a mindful way to whatever's happening around you, inhabiting right now instead of distracting yourself or planning or ruminating about the past. And so where do you draw the line between that and meditation? because I do a non-trivial amount of formal meditation in my life, either walking or sitting. But there's a way that that too can become an activity. I have like a daily target for the number of minutes I want to do, and so in at its worst, it could be subsumed into my productivity agenda. So I said a lot there. Any response to any of that?
Of course, that is exactly the concept of why even lazy day in the monastery is so important, because even the concept of achieving meditation becomes we're running after a to-do list. Like I need to get my 30-minute or my 45-minute or my 1 hour to feel like quote unquote a meditator. But in reality, a true practitioner, the thread of meditation is always present, whether it's a lazy day or not a lazy day, whether it's a busy day or a day of nothing. But the intention is of having that lazy day and allowing yourself to practice the non-practice so that you can thread this within the moments of your busiest months and weeks where you don't have enough time to practice, but actually the practice is not just built around a form of sitting in stillness. But for us, engaged Buddhism, engaged practice can be seen in the action. So while you're walking to a meeting, those 100 steps from this room to that other room, can those steps be a walking meditation practice? From here into the next day, as I have to plan, can I still not lose myself in the thinking that I can only be happy when the project is finished? So the practice of the 30-minute of non-scheduling with the community is to also break free from the concept of, even as a practitioner, I have to run after these particular timetables to feel like a practitioner. Because for us, the practice is portable. It can be invited up at any moment wherever you are. But in a monastery or in a retreat, we give ourselves a schedule. We help structure it to help train ourselves to give ourselves those right conditions to build that foundation of meditation, of presence. But in a Zen master, while he is wherever he is, the meditation is always present. You can invite it to be there. So and I just want to add also where this lazy day has helped practitioners, because even in Zen, we can also become a victim of running after enlightenment or running after, the success of meditation. And that becomes a target. And actually, for us, meditation is our whole life. It's a path of practice. It's not after you've completed a certain amount of retreats, then you're enlightened and you have nothing to do. The Buddha had to practice his whole life to maintain his awakened nature. And our teacher, who is known as a Zen master, had to continuously practice in order to maintain his spiritual dimension, his spiritual practice, so that he can bring it wherever he goes. So for us, the lazy day also helps deconstruct also all the forms that we create within meditation and in the Zen school.
But this strikes me as a very hard balance to strike, because it's hard enough to establish a meditation habit. It's very hard for most people. But so then how to do it without it being an agenda item?
For all of us who are living in the world that there's so much to be present for, having that 30-minute or the 20-minute structure of meditation is very important. And of course, continue to keep that if that is the well balance that we need. Just like exercising, we want to make sure we have that 45-minute or 30-minute. But then to go beyond that, to also see that without sitting on a cushion, I can still follow my breathing. I can still have the intention of relaxing my whole body, being present for myself. And that is meditation also. So it's to build within the school of meditation more ways of bringing in the spiritual dimension into our daily life, and not being so conservative with even the view of Zen or the view of meditation.
Something that I sometimes do if I'm feeling overwhelmed, burnt out, tired, is just lie on the ground for like a couple minutes, not in a dignified way. How does that go down with you, that thought, as a practical technique?
100%, I support that. If that's what helps us, if that's what helps you to feel that you can release and drop everything that you're carrying on your shoulders, just to be present, that can be a Dharma practice, laying down on the ground. Fully support that.
One of the arguments you've made is that laziness is productive in an interesting way because it does the being, to use your terminology, supports the doing. Can you say more about that?
We all have like a built-in autopilot as we grow older in life, and we fall into a rhythm, we fall into a pattern. And as we allow ourselves to continue that pattern, we may find ourselves dull and feeling not inspired to live life and be and to offer. So sometimes the doing nothing, it gives us an opportunity to just reflect, to just really look deeply and ask ourselves, am I happy? Like, what I'm doing, is it giving me nourishment? Is it offering me the joy that I need in order to also offer joy? Is this moment of everything that I'm doing, is it allowing me to feel love, to offer love, to be beloved? So the stopping here is an opportunity to just re-examine our life, re-examine our actions of body, speech, and mind. And so therefore, sometimes we're looking for a way out by doing more, but sometimes the way out is by coming back inwards. The way out is actually in. So we're learning to come back and just to reflect and just to see. And if we don't allow ourselves time to look deeply, and that sometimes it means to do nothing, to really allow ourselves to do nothing. Just like a lake, when the lake is finally calm, it will reflect whatever that is present. Whenever the cloud is passing by, a bird is flying by, it can reflect the blue sky. It can reflect exactly as it is. It presents reality as it is. And sometimes our mind, it wishes for that. But if we continue to preoccupy our daily activities, our habits, then we're not allowing ourselves to have a moment to understand ourselves more. So in the non-doing here, it is actually doing. So in the not being active, there is another thing that is happening, which is allowing yourself to feel and to see what needs to be felt and seen, and then ask yourself the questions that can invoke more curiosity, as well as giving us another opportunity of having different views at our own life. Yeah.
You said a lot there, but one of the things that I took away from it, and this might be an add-on, so please tell me if I'm wrong, but is that a lie that many of us tell ourselves, and certainly I've told myself this, is that the best way to be productive is just to go, go, go nonstop, go, go, go. And actually, and counterintuitively, the stopping is what allows your brain, your mind to rest in a way that will make the rest of the doing more effective, not less.
Correct. Exactly. Exactly. And sometimes when we're so tired, we think we're productive, but we're actually not very productive. So to rest is to rebuild and to heal in order to continue to offer, continue to be. Yeah.
Your teacher, Thich Nhat Hanh, that's the name that his followers, as you explained earlier, use for him. He, when he was alive, argued that there's a really kind of like a geopolitical case for laziness. And I think this is the quote, it's important to learn to be instead of do if we want to create a new society. Those were his
Mm.
words. What do you think he meant by that exactly?
I think when our teacher has a pulse on society, on the beat and the rhythm, the heartbeat of society, the heartbeat and the rhythm of of society is like what you explained. It's just we need to do, go, go, go. We need to feel established only when we're able to get this diploma, when we're to get this position, and that has become the mainstream energy of a lot of our part of the world, and therefore even in the child already experienced stress at a very early age because of the level of competition, the level of the complexes that we have to deal with to feel worthy to be loved. And so what he offered in those quotes is a different view, is a different um, way of being. Like, can we have another approach to how it is to be loved in this society, to be seen in this society? Because in our modern times, or 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 even before that, was like to feel loved is to be called something, to be seen as an accomplished when you have done this and that, and it builds on our ego, it builds on our title, etc. And there's nothing wrong with having titles or anything, but if that becomes our dominant like force of energy just to be, then we're sacrificing a lot. We're sacrificing the present moment. We're sacrificing the the people that we love, the people that we want to commit our time with, to be there for one another, to communicate, to understand each other. In, I think, all religions and all traditions, one of the core foundation of our ethics is love. And love is an energy that allows us to feel wholeness, allows us to overcome complexities. And if we continue to chase after the wholeness, but we don't recognize that the wholeness is present and we can offer wholeness to one another by just being there for one another, then we're never gonna stop running, and we're never gonna allow ourselves to just stay still in this river of life and to enjoy also the river of life. So by being, we we allow ourselves to just not continuing to run after something, but just to be present and just to feel the miracle of life that is here. And his quote in those lines is also to introduce a new culture. Can we establish a new culture in our society where we can allow ourselves to to be disconnected and to be present and to offer our true presence, our true connections. And right now, I think, like, I'm dealing with this is like every time I get a text message, I a lot of anxiety comes up because I feel like I have to respond right away. So there's a new culture that we've introduced to each and every one of us. It's like this very quick response. We have to respond to one another. If not, then we're expressing that we don't care about the situation and so on. But sometimes some of the questions in the emails or in the conversations, it needs some time for reflection. It needs some time for some deep looking, for some intention before responding. So we've created a very fast paced society of give and take and give. And here, if we continue to run after this energy, we will lose ourselves. We will burn out because we're not also allowing each and every individual and humanity as a whole. Also, part of our system is to rest. Even the day, even Earth, we have day and night. Even the nature, the trees, the flowers, they even know how to rest in order to keep giving. So all of us as humans, we're losing this this wisdom that we have inside of us, which is the wisdom of resting in order to continue to be. So it is also an invitation for all of us to reflect on our way of life. Are we allowing ourselves to be present, or are we always running after something towards the future?
Kind of what I'm taking away from what you just said and from what your teacher has said is that when we have massive problems on the planet, which really require creativity and communication and collaboration, and it's going to be hard to get into that headspace if we're always stuck in a headlong, mindless pursuit of gratification and forward momentum.
Exactly.
One other thought that came up for me when you were talking about, as you have been through the course of this conversation, about laziness is the Buddhist concept of right effort. One of the many hard things about meditation is, well, how hard am I supposed to try here? You know, you throw around the word relaxation, but then I fall asleep, but if I try too hard, I get too tight and I can't get anything. And, you know, the Buddha often compared it to like a lute, which is, or you could say a guitar, that if you tune the strings too tight, it doesn't sound too good. And if you tune it too loose, it doesn't sound too good. So there's some art and science to the tuning of our effort. And so that's coming up in my mind as you're talking about laziness. Does that sound like an appropriate connection or leap that I'm making there? And does it provoke any thinking on your end?
What you mentioned is very correct. It talks about the middle way in right effort. And I would like to also add on the practice of lazy day or laziness. Sometimes there are those of us who haven't had enough time, funny enough to say this as a monk, to practice within the week because of all of the projects that we're doing. So in that lazy day, you give yourself even more time to practice. You give yourself more time to sit. You give yourself more time to explore the sutras that you want to go deeper into. So it's you're creating yourself the right space, and you want to have the boundaries for yourself on that day is, let me break free from my 5 days of projects and just to nourish myself, whether that is meditation, whether that is art, whether that is study, and whether that is just the simple act of resting. And the fine tuning is the mindfulness that we all have to have. And I like to use my terminology is like, I want to listen to my pulse, like what does my body need for that day, and then also what does my spiritual body needs for this coming week. I look in the many different layers, like how about my connections with the community? Is my brotherhood, my siblinghood with the people that I live with, is there enough connection? Do I need to make more effort to see somebody, but not see them because of work, but see them and just ask them how they are doing, to check in? So the lazy day becomes this immense opportunity for deeper being.
In our remaining time, I want to ask you a few questions about something you mentioned earlier, which is exercise. This, as you know, this interview that we're doing with you is part of a series that we occasionally run here that we call Get Fit Sanely, because we exercise and diet and other things that we do to get healthy. You know, they can be healthy, and they also can be pursued in a way that can be unhealthy. And so I'm curious, like, what's the goal for a monk in going to the gym? Because it's not going to be to improve your dating life. What's on your mind? What are you trying to achieve? I know you describe yourself as a little bit of a gym rat. So what's your agenda for the gym for you?
To move the body first and foremost is to practice with the body. So in a lot of different temples, part of the Mahayana school, martial arts was brought into the training of monastics, and there's many elements. One of the elements is to physically move the body, to sweat, to train, but also it's a deep connection towards the body, to also learn to be very intentional with how you're moving the body. So for myself, like as a gym practitioner, well, it's to also maintain just wellness in the body, because we've learned that sometimes to exercise is also a wonderful way of releasing stress, releasing the emotions, and channeling the different energies that we have. And Plum Village, a lot of the monks and nuns are very young. We're in their early 20s, mid 20s, and early 30s. So we do have a lot of energy. So to have sport as part of our program is in order to intentionally direct the physical energy of an individual. So the gym, you're right, we're not here to increase our looks for the dating life, but it's also um you know s- so many people have also developed the the f- the non-acceptance of the body. So practicing yoga or practicing physical exercise is also to recommunicate, to reestablish a connection to the body. And I hope one day we can introduce like contemporary dance or something like that in the monastic world. Because I've done some dance classes with some of the practitioners that come to Plum Village, and like we can be so judgmental with ourselves and with our body, and just to learn to just accept the body. And so the dancing, the flowing is very mindful when you're listening to the music and allowing your body to move intentionally. So exercising is another form of meditation.
Are you immune to being critical of your own body? Does that go away when you become a monk and the dating thing is off the table?
No, I had a lot of complexes growing up, because I'm very small. Like growing up, I was like always the smallest in my group and so on. And then even in the monastery, we do a lot of sport like soccer and volleyball and basketball. So there's gonna be those who are very athletic, very good, and then yeah, you have to meet again your inferiority complexes when you're playing sport with the monastics, even within the among monks, right? So but all of this is inward, so it's learning to be at ease with it. It's also learning to accept it and knowing that you're you can grow and you can develop your talent, you can develop your body. So it's a lot about accepting. And I've learned a lot with my own body, and I've learned to accept my physical gift that I have been offered and I have inherited from my ancestors. Yeah.
Do you have any advice for the rest of us who may exercise with an agenda of, meeting some arbitrary standard set by the culture about how we should look, and getting into rounds and rounds of unconstructive self-laceration around how we look, et cetera, et cetera?
This really helped me, this quote. Um, we are all flowers in the garden of humanity. And the garden of humanity is beautiful because it is so diverse in its sizes, its form, its colors, its offering. So each and every one of us, we are a flower in this garden of humanity. And if you are able to be your authentic self and your true self, then you are already offering to this wonderful garden your greatest gift, which is your being. And of course, we can always continue to develop ourselves, but our aim is not that particular form, because we are also of the nature of impermanence. So we're ever changing, and to know that ourself as a flower in every stage of life has something to offer, whether it is um, the work that we do for humanity, whether it is how we show up. But each and every one of us, whether we are physically fit or not, there's something that we can always offer, that is our smile of kindness, our way of looking with compassion, and our way of being. So fitness for us is not just in the physical form, but fitness in also the way we offer our actions of body, speech, and mind. And I've learned to offer a smile, and I've learned to train myself to have a genuine smile, a smile um, that I can give to myself and to many others. So there is a spiritual fitness that we can also develop, a human fitness, which is beyond just the physical form, but the gift of kindness.
At least for me, my experience is that when I work on my spiritual fitness, meaning my how I treat other people, um, and I'm by no means perfect on this score, but when I'm in that mode of, to use your phrase, offering a smile, I'm not thinking about my abs, and it's a really nice way to kind of get you out of your head.
Yeah, exactly. I love that. Yes, exactly. Then every time I'm gonna offer a smile, I'm gonna have that. I'm not thinking of my abs right now. That's true. That's so true. Like a lot of people, we are the greats, our loved ones. We don't remember like about their physical attraction, but we're more attracted to the kindness that they offer, or the way that they were with us, how they impacted our life by their presence and their support to us. Yeah.
Brother Phap Huu, it's been great to talk to you. I just want to ask two questions before I let you go. These are questions I ask at the end of every interview. The first is there some place you were hoping to go that we didn't get to in this conversation?
No, I think I was following your flow, so I have no expectation. But
Said like a Zen monk. And the final is, can I get you to do some self promotion, please? I know you have your own podcast, and also you might want to tell us a little bit about how we can learn more about Plum Village. Can you go into the pitch mode if you don't mind?
thank you, Dan, for having me on the podcast. It's been a great joy to share and explore laziness. And I also have a podcast called The Way Out is In. It is a Plum Village podcast with my co-host Jo Confino, and we also explore a lot of how do we bring meditation into daily life. And as well as I'm from the Plum Village community, student of Zen Master Thich Nhat Hanh. So if you are curious about us, there is a website, www.plumvillage.org, where you can learn a lot more, as well as we have a YouTube channel for a lot of teachings from our teacher, Zen Master Thich Nhat Hanh, and many other teachers in our community. And that's also where you can find our podcast. And thank you, Dan, for also not just having me, but having also my other brothers and sisters on the podcast. Brother Pháp Hữu, Sister True Dedication, Sister Dakmin. We all grew up, I all grew up with them in Plum Village in the early 2000s.
I'll put some links in the show notes to the folks you just mentioned who we've interviewed on the show who come out of the Plum Village and Thich Nhat Hanh tradition. But we're very open to many more. So pitch us. We are. I am an admirer of the work that you collectively have done and are doing. So very open to more.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And I will. I have a few in mind that can be very interesting to also bring onto the podcast. Thank you, Dan.